All right, guys, welcome. We are here today for our monthly real estate update. So we come to you towards the end of every month to give you an update on what's happening on the market. So I have Bob here. Bob, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, Bob Warner, Senior Realtor Partner with the Evelo Team. We started obviously doing this kind of back in March, and just a good consistent thing, I think, for all of us to look at each month and good information to share.
Absolutely. Awesome. So Bob is our expert here. So I'm going to just ask him some questions and we'll run through this pretty quickly, but get you guys the facts that you need to know. So first off, Bob, tell me what happened in the market in September.
Yeah, so similar to what we've done in previous months, I'm going to go ahead and crack open a few slides here because they always tell the story a little bit better. I approached it a little bit differently this month. A lot of times we hit on the 4 or 5 key metrics. I thought one of the interesting things to do this month was to kind of show in graphical form what some of those pluses and minuses have looked like over the last 3 years, right? So one of the things that we've been looking at is the number of days on market, the average number of days on market for a listing. So the end of September, our average was 27 days, which year over year, that's down almost 31%, right? So if we look back here to September 2017, we had an average of about 60 days on market, or less than half of that currently. So a good number there. The other biggest one, probably the biggest change we've ever seen in our market, is this median sales price. So our median sales price is now up to $225,000, which is 18.5% over last year. We've never seen that kind of growth rate in our market previously. If you look back 3 years ago, we were just a tick over $160,000, right? So if you bought a $160,000 home 3 years ago, there's a good chance you could be looking at having a home that's 200, 215, 225, right? So big change there. That inventory, we've been talking about that number a lot each of these few months, and kind of, again, a balanced market being about a 5 or 6 month supply. We went up a whopping 0.1 month supply this month, up to a 0.9 month supply, which you'll see even over last year is a 55% decline, and a significant decline even from 3 years ago. So, and then just the last slide here real quick, pending sales are up almost 30%, and closed sales are up almost a little over 17%. So still a lot of the same story from what it's been the last few months.
Yeah, I'm celebrating as a realtor though that we went from 0.1 to 0.9. That's good. So we have some houses to show. But Bob's right. If you're thinking about listing, we do free home valuations, and that's a great thing to ask for, just so we can say, hey, here's what it could sell for, because it is significantly different than even what we would have told you guys last year.
Absolutely.
You're talking about that inventory. So what's that really look like? How's that play into effect?
Yeah, I started looking at this a little bit more granular last month, and I think it's a good relative slide. So just kind of picking 5 of our popular suburban areas: Fishers, Noblesville, Carmel, Westfield, Zionsville. We do a lot of business personally in those areas, and I just kind of look at, as of this morning, right, what were the total number of active listings in each of these suburbs, and you can kind of see those numbers here: Fishers 127, Noblesville 81, Carmel 163, Westfield 101, Zionsville 83. So we're still under 600 total homes for sale in those 5 popular suburban areas that, each one of those is, pretty decent sized suburb. And then if you kind of take a look over here, the number of listings that are under $250,000 in each of those suburbs, and we have less than 50, right? So that's a pretty telling number of what a 0.9 month supply of inventory looks like.
Yeah, that's crazy, especially with your numbers of the under 250. I saw Westfield had like less than 10.
Yep.
It's crazy to think about if you're in that market. So,
absolutely.
All right. And then we always talk about interest rates. So what's new with interest rates?
Yeah, so a lot has stayed the same there as well. The average interest rate is still, for a 30-year, is a tick under 3%, ending last week at 2.8%. I also brought in another comparative chart here. That's kind of our theme of the day, right? What's it look like today, and how's that compared to the last 3 or 4 years? So this chart actually looks back 5 years. You can see rates have been pretty good during that time. 2 years ago at this time, we took a spike up to near 5%. And being down at 2.8% right now, that's a big change.
For sure. Absolutely. So I think, if you're a buyer, the first couple facts are probably a little bit on the depressing side, right? There's no homes. I'm going to ask Bob in a second about new home construction, but on a really positive note, your purchasing power, I know we've talked about that, but it's a lot stronger. So you can potentially buy more, not potentially, you can buy more than you would have been able to at different interest rates. So it's great to talk to a lender. We can recommend those, but just to help you see like what's that actual number look like.
Yep.
We had a person, Cole on the team posted, he helped a person buy the other day. They were actually paying less on their mortgage than they were for rent, which is not
Yep.
surprising.
And that's a good thing. I just had a little slide here, right? In that kind of that Gen Z and millennial who've maybe kind of been fence sitters for a little bit in terms of taking the leap into home ownership, right? This is a great opportunity to sit down and speak with a real estate professional to see if that might be the right time for you. This is just kind of a chart here that shows interest is growing among those age groups. And with the interest rate being so low, you could potentially own a home for less than what you're paying in rent.
Absolutely. Yeah. We know the rent, especially in certain areas of town, are very high and oftentimes come in higher than a mortgage payment would be. All right. So finally, let's talk new construction. So what are the opportunities there? What's happening in that arena?
Yep. So one of the ways, obviously, that you can take advantage of low inventory is to create your own inventory, right? And that's the possibilities that exist with new construction. So we just kind of started looking at how's new construction doing year over year as well, right? Because if you own a home currently and you've been thinking about selling, building may be a great option for you, right? Capitalize on kind of that seller's market and that 18.5% year over year increase in the median home sales price to then use that equity that you've gained during your home ownership period of time to go build a new home. And typically, I even shared with Hannah real quick before we got on, the applications for home construction permits increased 45% in September of 2020 versus 2019. I do know that the Builders Association of Greater Indianapolis put in their comments that they thought that in part that large increase, because we've been seeing increases of about 9 to 12% most months. In part, they felt that that could be municipalities catching up from being behind a bit during COVID, right? You might sign a new construction contract and it might be a month or 6 weeks before that permitting process begins. But that's obviously a huge number for a market the size of ours to be up that big. And then we remain up 15% year over year in terms of total number of permits.
Awesome. So good opportunities there. And, I'm not to like repeat the stuff we've said in previous ones, but we do a lot with new construction and we know a lot about the different builders. So we'd love to talk through that too, if you're a potential buyer and want to hear what's the difference and what does that look like to do new construction. All right. So final thoughts, Bob?
Yeah, I always kind of try to end with a couple things. This month, I think I'm going to focus a little bit maybe on just selling, right? Because selling your house could definitely be the right move right now, right? So this chart I have up here is a little bit more national statistics overall. And I'll just kind of throw in some of the local home stats as well, right? So the number of homes for sale right now in our market is down 49.5% year over year. We see a similar thing in that the number of showings, has increased over 60%, right? So the less homes you have for sale, that means there's going to be more showings on fewer homes. Our median sales price, as we've already talked about, has gone up 18.5% year over year, which is a big change. And then our days on market is down about 30.1%. So big changes. If you've kind of been on the fence at all, or some people were maybe waiting to see what the fall Brent from a pandemic standpoint, or maybe even an election standpoint, or even if you're just thinking about it for the spring. Like I know I've already been contacted by a couple of clients that, bought a few years ago and they're kind of already planning for the spring, right? This is a good time to maybe have those conversations. Some of those things might be like, what could we do to maximize the value? Or there's some small projects that we could work on during the winter, right, to then be ready to go in the spring and make our home kind of stand out more than others.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thanks for getting all that prepped so we know what's going on. We appreciate you guys joining in today. If you do have a need or have questions that we can help with, you can comment here on the post, or you can reach us at info@eveloteam.com or 317-863 9011, and we'll post those that contact info in the video here. So we appreciate it, and thanks so much for joining.